Page number 5. For the most part, we're now past the provocative. Now I'm going to give you the sales management stuff. All right? The pain is almost over. I included this in the workbook this morning. These are my playbooks. Every company should have a playbook of what it's going to do on sales management. I'm going to cover a lot of those bullet points at the top half of that page in the next hour or so. And then the bottom half are the things that I started with this hour when I started reminding us of the things I covered in the last session. So that's the playbook. So let's look in a little bit more detail on the sales management side, and now I'm on page 6, the bare minimum. Measure everything. Here's the sentence I would love for you to get the drift of in your notes. Minimum standards of performance need to be negotiated with each individual salesperson. Boy, that was a loaded sentence. Let me give it to you again. Minimum standards of performance need to be negotiated with each individual salesperson. I go into a company and I say, what's the minimum standard for a salesperson to work here? Well, what do you mean by minimum standard? What's the least amount that they can produce and still keep their job? We don't have anything like that. Well, how do you manage them? Well, we tell them to sell something, please. I go to another company, they have 10 salespeople, they all have the same minimum standard. That was better than the first guy, but here's the problem with everybody with the same standard. The top 3 guys out of 10 think it's a joke, it's too low. The bottom 3 guys think it's a joke, it's too high, so you played to the middle. So there's 2 key words in the sentence I'd love for you to highlight. Individual. Customize the minimum standard based upon a person's experience, their capabilities, and their territory. All customers should not be treated equally. Now watch this one. Nor should salespeople. Some salespeople should be held to a higher standard than others. The second key word was negotiate. If you dictate a minimum standard to a salesperson, you miss their most important ingredient, and that is their buy-in. People will fight for the goals they set. And getting a salesperson involved in that is key. Jerry over here, he's my sales guy. I'm a sales manager. There's the sales territory. Let me tell you about one of the guys that I had in my company that had a sales territory like you. Hopefully you're not like him. Watch this. Same sales territory here, but this guy's name is Joe. Real guy, worked for me years ago. Making $40,000 a year in the sales territory. 100% commission only. No base. I know he could be making at least $100,000. All we need to do is these 6 things. So I sat down with him and I said, Joe, you could be making $100,000 or more. All you need to do is these 6 things. Go do them and we're going to be a lot happier. 3 months later, I looked at his numbers. He's still at 40. So I have another conversation. I said, I didn't do a good job telling you about this the first time. Let me try it again. See, this is my company. You just have this territory. And I could be generating $100,000 worth of revenue more if you would just do these 6 things. And so if you don't start doing them in the next 3 months, you're going to force my hand and you're going to tell me to cut your territory in half. And 3 months after that conversation, I cut his territory in half, and he walked in and he quit. And I said, why are you quitting? And he said, because I can't live off of 20 grand a year. Good luck and goodbye. The next day I walked in and he's there. I said, what are you doing here? He said, my wife and I talked about it, and we decided that I would work that half territory, and this is what I thought way back then. This is a good deal. I mean, I want you to think about this. No base salary, 100% commission only. Now I have 2 guys covering the territory where I only had 1. All that I can do is win. It's upside. Please learn from my mistake. It's a terrible decision. Here's what I want to tell you. A non-performing salesperson, regardless of how you pay them, is non-performing. You put Joe into this territory, he's just going to poop in a smaller space. And someday, somebody's going to have to come in after him and clean up the poop. But I wasn't that smart, so I kept him. And a year later, we ran all of our sales guys' numbers. I want you to take a guess. How much do you think Joe made in this territory?
20,000.
This guy made 50, and when that happened, the light went on. I could have done this, and he'd made 40. I could have done that, and that. Because Joe woke up one day in life and said, 40 pays for my habits, and he governs his behavior to hit that number. So I now have an expression in my business. I'd love for you to write it down because this is a really powerful one. Joe has to go. Joe has to go. All right, I just did something really natural for me. I just ranked my sales guys from top to bottom. That's my best sales guy. That's my bottom sales guy. I have 12 of them. We recommend if you have more than 6 salespeople, rank your salespeople and publish it and meet with it at least once a month with the whole team and talk about the results. Also, you should have one-on-one meetings with your salespeople. I want to talk to the person who was number 3 who dropped down to number 9 in a single month. This is my top 25%. This is my second 25. This is my third 25. This is my fourth 25%. If you have a top quartile person drop to the third or fourth quartile in a month, usually has nothing to do with business. Something's going on in this guy's personal life that if you don't get it on the table, they could go right off the page on you. I want to talk to the guy who was number 10, who shot up to number 5, and find out what that magic is, and maybe it's something I could share with the rest of the team. I just gave you a lot of assignments on that page, and too few of you are writing them down, so let me give it to you again. What I said was holding people to minimum standards. The second thing I said was that I would rank my salespeople. The third is that I would meet with them at least once a month. Liz's company meets with them weekly. I also said that I would have individual one-on-one meetings at least monthly, but Liz's company meets with them weekly. Liz is the company that went from $4 million to 450 plus million over a 15-year period. All industries combined, this bottom 25% is producing less than 6% of the sales. All industries combined in the U.S., this top quartile is producing 60+%. I want to talk to you about one of my companies. I had 2,600 salespeople. Besides the companies I built from scratch, I had 2 turnarounds that I was asked to come into big companies and turn them around. When I took on this company, all 2,600, none of them I hired. So my natural question was, who's the best guy in the house? Who's the bottom guy in the house? And what do their numbers look like? It took the company 2.5 weeks to give me that answer. They had no idea. They never tracked performance. No wonder they're in trouble. 650 people were here, 650 people were here, 650 people were here, 650 people were here. Watch this. These 650, 25% of my sales force, did less than 3% of the sales. This group did 67% of the sales. You're the guy that's now running the blue. You discover that in week 3. Any ideas on how to improve the company?
Trim the fat.
Trim the fat. I call it being Lincoln and freeing these people. Usher them on to their new career. I'm convinced these people are going to be good at something. They clearly suck at this. By the way, every time that I have dealt with this issue, these 3 quartiles beat the results of these 4. Every time that I've dealt with this quartile at the bottom, what do these top 5 of 12 people say?
Thank you.
Thank you. More for me. Finish the sentence. What took you so long? Please write these 4 words down on that page. Hire slowly, fire quickly. You know what I find these people to be down here? So often, I find them to be energy vampires. And all they do is come in and try to get the energy out of my top people. Now, the companies we have in the room are closer to the red 12 people than you are to the 2,600 blue, right? Let me give you something to really chew on. I can actually tolerate keeping those 650 and still make it easier than you with 12 people can tolerate those bottom 3. But if you went into this 2,600, you would have no issue trimming the fat. But when it's 12 people, you have difficulty dealing with the 3 because you know their family, you know all kinds of history, and you get emotional about it. And it hurts your business more than me not dealing with the 650. And that's what the problem is with small to medium-sized companies. If I come into your company and you have 12 salespeople and I notice that 3 are not carrying their weight, I got no history, I got no issues. You carry issues with you.
Hire somebody to do it for you.
Sure. There used to be a guy called George Clooney that was up in the air, and that's what he did in that movie. Is he came in the companies and let people go. If you remember the movie. All right? My travel agent calls me her George Clooney because I travel so often. These folks here, not only energy vampires, disaster to your culture. Disaster to your culture. Let me ask this. How many of you are out in the marketplace looking to bring in somebody that could come into your company and be the new top producing #1 salesperson in the company? How many are looking for a person of that caliber? Gary, did you just see what I saw? I saw less than 10% of the hands up.
Everybody else has got great things.
Like, I want to leave the building right now. Watch this. If you had 12 salespeople and you brought a new #1 in here, what would happen with the production of these top 5 of 12 people that you currently have? Would it go up or down? It would go up. And does the new #1 come in by themselves, or do other people follow them? Other people typically follow them from the other company they were in, and they're typically first and second quartile people. So watch this. If you brought this new #1 in, you would have gotten a new #1's production, plus you would have raised the performance of the top half of your company, plus you would have gotten some new entries into there. And I said, how many of you'd like to do that? And 90% of this room said, nah, keep that shit away from me. I don't want to do that. Now, the title of this program is Building a World-Class Sales Organization, so I don't know what I'm doing here. Everybody's hand should have been up. Everybody's hand should have been up. And I don't want to hear about, oh, I have 12 and I need 12, I'm fully staffed. I got 3 right here. But you don't need to be fully staffed in order to be that. You always want that new #1, even if you are, you'll find room for a new #1. You'll always make room for a new #1. Now, where are those people that raised their hand and said they're looking for a new #1? Where are they? Don't don't more hands come up than that's not fair. All right, put those hands down. All right. Now, if I asked you one-on-one in your office and you raised your hand and said, yeah, I'm looking for that, I'd high-five you. And then, here's what I would say to you. Perfect, show me your list.
Of my new number one prospect?
Yeah, show me the list. And you should see what the answer's like. What list? List of the people that you're actively recruiting to be your new number one. Well, I don't have a list. If you raised your hand and you don't have a list, you ain't looking either. What you raised your hand to was this. Wouldn't it be neat if I drove in one day and one or two top producers were out front saying, hey, you all hiring? Because I haven't found that process to work very well. So let's turn to the next page and talk about a really important page, and that is recruiting is a process and not an event. Recruiting is a process and not an event. It needs to be ongoing and continuous. 4 key component parts, A, B, C, and D. A, list. I think everybody that has a company should have a list of at least 10 to 15 people on the list. I don't care if your company has 1 to 2 salespeople, you need a list of 10 to 15 people, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. First thing is you need a list. I have a couple people that I want to show you. If you're not getting my newsletter on a monthly basis, be sure to take a business card out of your pocket, out of your purse, and bring it up to me when you leave today. And I'll put you into my newsletter database. You'll get this monthly. I write it every month. It's free, okay? So in culture, sales management, and sales. I got 60,000 plus people reading that every month. I have a lot of salespeople that read it. Let me show you. I have 2 of them to choose from. See the salesperson here? They have 10 years of selling experience. All of it is in your industry. They've worked at 2 companies, and in the 10 years that they have worked in the industry, they've been in the 3rd and 4th quartile their entire life. The second candidate has 10 years of selling experience as well. None of it is in your industry. Worked at 2 companies. Always have been in the 1st and 2nd quartile. Would you like to pick the first guy or the second guy? They're good in these rooms. You guys are good in these rooms. What happens when you leave? That's the question. Because when I go into my clients, the only place they're recruiting is inside their industry. Here's what I want to tell you. B, open up the net. Go beyond your industry. You can teach people your business easier than you can correct somebody in the 3rd or 4th quartile that has industry experience. I was 16 and she was 15. That was when I first dated my wife Bonnie. In December of this year, we'll celebrate our 45th wedding anniversary. We dated for about 4 years before we got married. I'm going to suggest to you that if we dated 2 or 3 times and got married, we courted each other and got to know whether we thought we could get along together. So item C is a courting process. A courting process. And here's the courting process for every person on the list. 2 times a month, touching them. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, ball game, industry event, email, snail mail, some way reaching out and just staying in touch with them. My very best hires in sales, the very best hires I've ever made in sales, they were already happy where they were at and they weren't looking for a job. That's my best hires. But what I learned about top producers is this. They go where they want, when they want, and they tend to go to the person who's been courting them all along the way. The reason that you need 10 to 15 people on your list is we have no idea when somebody's going to be ready to make a move. They're happy where they're at. But I can tell you when they're going to make that move, and it's D. And D is 2 words. Life happens. Let me tell you what life happens means. I'm already happy doing business in the industry that I'm in. Boom! Their industry blows up. Remember I had a company in the residential mortgage lending business? 7 years ago, if you tried to recruit one of those salespeople out of that industry, they would have laughed at you all the way. By the way, they're already trained and built to work 100% commission only with no base. That's their orientation they come from. That's the world they come from. And 7 years ago, they would have laughed at you. 6 years ago, they would have been. But if you didn't court them along the way, then you missed them when they made the move. I'm already happy when the company that I'm in, I'll never leave the company. And then the company has financial difficulties and starts laying people off. And you're touching them twice a month. Hey, let's talk. They changed the compensation plan for the salespeople. They like the old one, they don't like the new one. Life happens. The culture changed in the company. They like the old one, not the new one. Life happens. The company was sold. They don't like the new buyer. Life happens. They used to work with a small family-owned company. They sold it to a big conglomerate. Policies, procedure, bureaucracy. Life happens. They promoted a salesperson to the sales manager's job. They think they should have gotten the promotion, and there's no way they're working with that guy. Life happens. You know what? We have no idea when life's going to happen. But I can tell you this. If you're courting 15 people twice a month, odds are life's going to happen to one or two of them that year, and where they're going to make the move is to you. Now, here's the problem with that. If you're committing any one of the three sins, you don't have time to touch 15 people twice a month. So what's going to happen is you're going to miss those top producers that make that change in the still of the night because you're working on the urgent and not the important. So, the way that we tend to recruit in business is this way. Let me show it to you. Your number 3 out of 12 people walks in one day and says, I quit. And you say, oh no! And you try to hold them and they are resilient and say, nope, I'm out of here. And then you walk back to your office and cry, oh, I gotta get somebody quickly. With experience. Let me show you the group. We call them the gypsies of sales. They go from one company to another quickly with experience. The only word we leave off is bad. And then we stick them in this territory, and then these customers say, you used to be good and now you suck. And that's the second item on that page. It says recruit people, don't absorb them. This is easy, this is hard. So I make this case, and it's difficult to argue. That doesn't mean the sales managers still don't stand in there and argue, because this is what I hear next. Well, if I need 15 people in there, you don't understand. What, Gary, give me the right numbers, 11 parishes, 400,000 people?
Yep.
We've got 11 parishes, 400,000 people. How am I going to find these people? I don't care what industry they work in, but how am I going to find them? And so item 3 tells you how to find them, and that is you got to define them to find them. Got to define what a top producer looks like. I'm not talking about job description. Job description's for HR. I'm not into HR. I'm looking at the personal characteristics and attributes. What makes a top salesperson in your industry and in your company? And I have a prototype built on page 8. It's not yours. You need to redo page 8 in order for it to be yours. You have to make it so that it fits within your culture, within what you have experienced. What works here in your community? You ever gone home and found yourself saying this? Man, if I just had 1 or 2 more people, like bang. Ever found yourself doing that? What makes that person so special? What makes them so special? Then, once you have built a good page 8, what you do with it is you put your contact information on the bottom. So all your contact information goes on the bottom of that, and then you carry it on your person, And everywhere you go, you give it out. I got a kick-ass company, and here's the vision, and we have a dynamite fun culture. And if you know anybody that looks like this page, send them my way. I'm always looking for a person who looks like this. If I'm the soccer coach of my son's soccer team, the parents drop the kids off for practice and pick them up, right? I run out to the cars with the kid, with the profile. Got a kick-ass company. We got an awesome culture. I'm looking for dudes looking like this. You got anybody that you work, anybody, I don't care what industry they're in, I'll teach them the industry. So Bonnie and I, we're sitting having a nice dinner at a very exclusive restaurant on the top of the cliff in Dana Point, California. We're overlooking the harbor, and it is unbelievable dinner, enhanced by one of the finest waitresses I've ever had. And so I start interviewing the waitress. Like, is this what you're going to do for the rest of your life? No, I'm only using this to supplement my income. I'm actually going to school during the day, and this is what I do to put some money in my jeans. But yeah, I'm going to be this, and I'm asking her questions, and on and on and on. And then all of a sudden, out comes the profile out of my jacket, and I say, well, let me tell you something. You know what? I got a kick-ass company with an awesome culture, and we're looking for people to look like that profile on page number 8. And if you look like this, my contact information is right at the bottom. And I'll tell you what, it'll be one of the greatest things and moves you made. I'm not talking you out of your career, but you might just change careers just because it's that hot. And by the way, look, I was 16 and she was 15 when I first met her, so I'm not hitting on you. All I'm doing is trying to build a company, baby. Give me a call. Later on that night, dessert came, and this gentleman comes up to our table with a nice suit on, and he says, just curious how your evening is. I've been going, and I said, it's been awesome. I've had a great time. I appreciate you asking. And he says, well, maybe you won't necessarily appreciate me asking, because you see that woman sitting over at that table by herself? Well, that's my wife. And we had a terrible evening. And I said, well, what's that got to do with me? And he said, well, we were supposed to be sharing the same waitress, but she spent all of her time over here with you and her talking. Now, if you haven't determined yet, I've got a little edge to myself. Came out of Philly, right? They throw snowballs at Santa during sporting events there, right? So I turned to the guy and I said, so what do you want out of me? You want me to pick up your tab or something? He said, I think that's a good start. Here it is. So it can be a little of an investment when you're out there recruiting all the time. But, you know, that's a funny story, right? But I want to tell you something in that funny story. There was a really big lesson. I had a profile and I had it on my person, and I always do. In 1985, I put my wife and 2 kids on an airplane with me, and we left the northeast part of the country, and we moved to Southern California where we live today. That was 30 years ago. We moved there for one reason, and that was the good weather. And I decided to start a company, and I brought 3 people with me. And the 4 of us started building our company, and 18 months later, we had 750 employees. You think I did that by myself? Or do you think that I enlisted a whole lot of other people to get involved in the process? Leverage. Recruiting is a process, not an event. It needs to be ongoing and continuous. Last thing I'll say on this page is item number 5. Recruit for skills, but hire for attitude. 50% or more of success at selling is a head case. 50% or more of success at selling is getting up in the morning and saying, God bless the competition, I'm going to kick your ass. You can teach people product, you can teach them price, you can teach them service, you can teach them strategies, you can teach them tactics. What I've never been able to figure out is how to teach a human being want to get up in the morning and want to chew raw meat off the bone. But I know if I get that character, I can teach them everything else. When Wayne and I drove up here this morning, I feel like I've had my own Sherpa since I arrived yesterday. When Wayne and I drove up here this morning, we rode down this street here, I noticed all of the LSU banners, and I didn't realize that you guys had a campus and this was LSU country. But I got to tell you, I lived in Columbia, South Carolina for a year, and I know how important football is. I teach recruit for skills, hire for attitude. I teach that in such a simplistic way to my sales managers in my companies. I just tell them to write 2 words down under number 5. If you do these 2 words, you'll do well. Hire Rudy. 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 Now, if you haven't seen that movie, that didn't work. Now, how many people in here have never seen the movie Rudy? Let me see the hands. Get out! Get out! Really? You really have not seen the movie Rudy? Really? All right. If you do nothing else as a result of being here today, you need to rent the movie Rudy. Now, here, Rudy is a true story about a guy that wasn't smart enough to get in Notre Dame and wasn't big enough to play football and did. Do you know that I watch Rudy no less than 4 times every year? Do you know that I have yet to make it through that movie without crying? I'm so good at that movie now that I cry in anticipation of the scene that's coming. Oh shit, they're going to put the jerseys on Aaron Parsegin's desk. Oh no. You get Rudy, you can teach him product, price, service, strategies, and tactics. You get the anti-Rudy, you are screwed. That's what I learned about business. Hire Rudy. That's what you're looking for. That's your profile. All right? That's a really important job I just went through. Somebody's got to be doing it, and I don't think it's part-time. All right.